A locksmith stands frozen in a doorway. Behind him, police officers gag and turn away. On a bed in the corner lies a teenage girl, barely breathing, chained to a radiator. In the bathroom, buckets on the wall, Polaroid photographs that will haunt investigators for decades. This is apartment 357, and for the past 6 months, it's been a slaughterhouse. The year is 1996. Novokuznetsk, Siberia, a city of 500,000 people, crumbling under the weight of post-Soviet collapse. Factories are shutting down. Parents can barely feed their children. And on the streets, something else is happening, something no one wants to talk about. By summer's end, over 40 children will be reported missing. Some will turn up, others won't. The ones who don't, well, pieces of them will wash up along the banks of the Aba River. Small pieces, unidentifiable pieces. The police have theories. A taxi driver, Satanists, organ traffickers. Some even whisper about a mutant created by the city's toxic air. They're wrong on all counts. The truth is simpler and infinitely worse, because the person responsible isn't hiding in shadows or driving unmarked cars. He's living in plain sight in a gray Soviet apartment block on Pioneer Street, 9th floor, apartment 357. And he's not working alone. His accomplice, his own mother. This is the story of how love became monstrous, how a bureaucratic error unleashed a serial killer, and how an entire neighborhood heard screams and did nothing. Every monster has an origin story. Alexander Spesivtsev begins on March 1st, 1970. He's born premature, fragile, weak, but to his mother, Lyudmila, he's perfect. She doesn't just love him, she worships him. They share the same bed until he's 12 years old. They're inseparable, locked in a bond that goes beyond maternal affection into something darker, something possessive. The family lives in a typical Soviet apartment block, gray, concrete, identical to thousands of others across Russia, but inside apartment 357, normal rules don't apply. Lyudmila's marriage to Alexander's father is turbulent from the start. He's a working man, practical and grounded, but Lyudmila's obsession with their son creates an insurmountable wedge between them. She prioritizes Alexander above everything, above her husband, above her daughter, above basic social norms. The father eventually leaves, unable to compete with the intensity of his wife's devotion to their son. This only strengthens the bond between mother and child. Now it's just the two of them against the world. Young Sasha, what his mother calls him, is a terror. He vandalizes mailboxes, breaks elevators, puts matches in door locks. When neighbors complain, Lyudmila erupts in fury. How dare they criticize her precious boy? When teachers suggest he needs a correctional school, she defends him viciously. Sasha learns a crucial lesson early. Mother will always protect him, no matter what. The Soviet education system tries to intervene. Teachers document his behavioral problems. School psychologists recommend evaluation. But in the late Soviet era, mental health services are severely underfunded and stigmatized. Families resist diagnosis. Lyudmila fights every attempt to label her son as troubled. She sees their concerns not as help, but as attacks. and in her mind, any attack on Alexander is an attack on her. Neighbors remember the Spesivtsev household with unease. The boy never plays with other children. He watches them from the window with an intensity that makes parents uncomfortable. When he does venture outside, it's only to cause destruction. Broken glass in the sandbox, dead cats near the playground, small fires in the trash chutes. Each incident is explained away by Lyudmila as childhood mischief, accidents, or her favorite defense, the lies of jealous neighbors who can't stand to see a bright boy succeed. Meanwhile, Lyudmila herself is far from innocent. She works as a school janitor and steals anything not nailed down: toilet paper, light bulbs, brooms. When she's fired, she gets a job through her daughter as an assistant to a blind lawyer. Now she steals something different: criminal case files, complete with photographs of murder scenes. The lawyer, unable to see, relies entirely on Lyudmila to manage his office. She exploits this trust completely. Case files disappear, evidence, photos vanish, documents go missing. By the time anyone notices, Lyudmila has moved to another position. The lawyer never realizes what he's lost. She brings them home, and young Sasha discovers them. Most mothers would be horrified to find their child obsessing over crime scene photos. Lyudmila is delighted. Her son has found a passion. She brings home more files, more photographs, more detailed descriptions of how people died. She's feeding him, not food, something worse. Psychologists who later review the case point to this as the critical turning point. Alexander isn't naturally drawn to violence. He's systematically exposed to it by the one person he trusts most in the world. His mother curates a curriculum of death. She normalizes brutality. She teaches him, through her theft and her approval, that rules don't apply to them, that other people exist only as objects, that taking what you want, whether files or lives, is acceptable if you don't get caught. By age 20, Alexander can't hold a job, can't join the army. They reject him for mental health issues. A psychiatrist prescribes medication. Alexander doesn't take it. This decision will cost dozens of people their lives. The medication is an antipsychotic meant to control the emerging symptoms of schizophrenia. In the chaos of post-Soviet healthcare, there's no follow-up, no monitoring. The prescription is written and forgotten. Alexander throws the pills away. Lyudmila doesn't force him to take them. Perhaps she doesn't understand their importance. Perhaps she doesn't want her son to be different from the image she's created of him. Or perhaps, in some dark corner of her psyche, she enjoys the version of Sasha that's emerging. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because in 1991, something unexpected happens. Alexander falls in love. Her name is Zhenya Guselnikova. She's 17, pretty, from an ordinary family. Alexander courts her with poetry and promises of eternal love. His mother and sister even move out to give the young couple privacy. It seems for a moment like Alexander Spesivtsev might be normal after all. Zhenya represents hope. She's young, optimistic, and sees something in Alexander that others miss. Maybe she believes she can save him. Maybe she's drawn to his intensity, mistaking obsession for passion. Her parents are wary. They sense something off about this young man. But Zhenya is headstrong. She moves into apartment 357, dreaming of a future together. For a few weeks, it's almost normal. They cook together, listen to music. Alexander is attentive, romantic even, but beneath the surface, something is building. His jealousy is pathological. When Zhenya mentions a male friend, Alexander's mood darkens for days. When she suggests visiting her parents alone, he accuses her of planning to leave him. The walls of apartment 357 begin to feel less like a home and more like a cage. Then Zhenya and Alexander have their first fight. He beats her so severely, she ends up in the hospital. Then he follows her there and attacks her again. Nurses pull him away. Most women would run and never look back. Zhenya doesn't. Maybe he apologizes. Maybe he promises to change. Maybe she just wants her belongings back. Whatever the reason, she returns to apartment 357. She never leaves. For 1 month, Zhenya Guselnikova is trapped inside that apartment. Alexander plays loud music to drown out her screams. Neighbors hear. They do nothing. They're used to Spesivtsev's antics. This is the tragedy of communal Soviet housing. The walls are thin. Everyone hears everything. But there's an unspoken rule. You don't interfere. You don't call authorities unless absolutely necessary. Decades of Soviet life have taught people that getting involved only brings trouble, and so neighbors turn up their own televisions, cover their ears with pillows, convince themselves it's just another domestic dispute. Did his mother come during that month? Almost certainly. Did she help Zhenya? Absolutely not. Lyudmila later claims she knew nothing, but investigators don't believe her. The apartment is small, less than 500 square feet. Sound carries. Evidence suggests she visited, brought food, perhaps even spoke to Zhenya, but she did nothing. Her loyalty to Alexander overrode any basic human compassion. In her mind, if her son hurt this girl, the girl must have deserved it. After 30 days, either neighbors or Zhenya's parents finally call the police. Officers break down the door. The scene waiting inside is something from a nightmare. Zhenya is dead, sepsis and exhaustion. Though the exact cause can't be determined, what's clear are the stab wounds Alexander inflicted. As police lead him from the building, he shouts at neighbors, "You're to blame for her death." In his fractured mind, this makes perfect sense. If they had intervened earlier, he wouldn't have had to go so far. If they had called police sooner, things wouldn't have escalated. In the twisted logic of a psychopath, he's the victim. They forced his hand. His responsibility dissolves into blame for everyone else. Any rational person would expect prison, life imprisonment, execution. Instead, Alexander Spesivtsev is declared insane and sent to a psychiatric hospital. He's diagnosed with schizophrenia, and while there, he does something bizarre even by his standards. He inserts a shotgun pellet into his genitals. In his disturbed mind, this will enhance pleasure. In reality, it causes a chronic infection, constant, unbearable pain that will never go away. The psychiatric facility where Alexander is sent is typical of Russian institutions of the era. Understaffed, underfunded, overcrowded, orderlies are overworked, Doctors are demoralized. Patients exist in a limbo between treatment and warehousing. Alexander receives medication irregularly. Therapy is minimal. He spends his days reading, writing, and festering in his own thoughts. The infection from his self-mutilation becomes chronic. Doctors treat it half-heartedly. The pain becomes his constant companion, sharpening his rage. He gets a tattoo too, the letter E, for Yevgenia, for the first woman he killed. After several years, doctors make a decision that will haunt Novokuznetsk forever. They declare Alexander Spesivtsev no longer a threat to society. They release him, but they forget one crucial step. They don't notify the police. Usually, when a murderer leaves psychiatric care, local law enforcement is informed. They're supposed to monitor the person, make regular visits, ensure public safety. None of that happens due to a bureaucratic error, a simple administrative oversight. Alexander Spesivtsev walks free with zero supervision. The police don't even know he's out. This is the catastrophic failure that enables everything that follows. In the chaos of 1990s Russia, institutions are collapsing. The Soviet system is gone, but nothing has replaced it. Government agencies operate in dysfunction. Records are incomplete. Communication between departments is non-existent. Alexander Spesivtsev falls through a crack in the system, and that crack swallows dozens of lives. He returns to apartment 357, to his mother, to his old life. Only now, something inside him has fundamentally broken. He stops communicating with anyone, except Lyudmila and homeless people at the railway station. He buys them cheap wine. They listen to his rambling stories. They make him feel successful, powerful, in control. The homeless become his audience. They don't judge. They don't ask questions. For a bottle of cheap vodka, they'll listen to anything. Alexander spins fantasies about his life, his plans, his importance. He's not a failed psychiatric patient living with his mother. He's a philosopher, an intellectual, someone who understands things others don't. The homeless nod and drink. Some of them will later tell police about the strange man who bought them alcohol and talked about death with disturbing familiarity. In early 1996, at that same station, he meets Elena Trunova. She's 20, a kindergarten teacher. They go back to his apartment. Elena is his first victim after release. She's young, naive, trusting. Perhaps she sees him as lonely and feels compassion. Perhaps she's attracted to his intensity. Whatever draws her to apartment 357, it's a decision she'll never get to regret. During their encounter, Alexander mentions his medical problem. The pellet, the infection, the constant pain. According to Alexander, Elena mocks him, accuses him of impotence. He snaps. Afterward, he calls his mother. "I need your help," he tells her. And Lyudmila, his devoted, obsessed, enabling mother, doesn't hesitate. She doesn't call the police, doesn't try to get her son help. Instead, she grabs buckets, she cleans the apartment, and she carries what her son has done, piece by piece, to the Aba River. Why does she help him? This question haunts everyone who studies this case. Had she done this before? How can a mother react so calmly to finding a dead woman in her son's apartment? The answer is chilling, because to Lyudmila Spesivtseva, her son's needs come before everything, before law, before morality, before human life itself. Her love has become monstrous. Psychologists who study familial murder partnerships point to certain patterns. The dominant partner, usually male, commits the violence. The submissive partner, often female, assists afterward. But the Spesivtsev case doesn't fit this model neatly. Lyudmila isn't submissive. She's not coerced. She actively chooses, again and again, to help her son destroy evidence, dispose of bodies, and continue killing. Some experts suggest she experiences folie à deux, a shared psychosis where two people reinforce each other's delusions. Others point to her personality disorder, her own criminal behavior throughout life, her complete inability to see other humans as real. Whatever the clinical explanation, the result is the same. Lyudmila becomes not just an accessory, but a partner, and it's about to get worse. After Elena dies in February, Alexander doesn't stop. He escalates. In April, he approaches a group of teenagers at a construction site. He offers them cigarettes, gains their trust, then makes a proposition. Let's go rob an apartment together. Why would children agree? Because it's the 1990s. In Russia, crime is romanticized. Poverty is crushing. The promise of easy money is irresistible. The collapse of the Soviet Union has left an entire generation adrift. The certainties of their parents' lives are gone. There are no jobs, no prospects. Television shows glamorize criminals as the new success stories. Boys wear tracksuits and dream of becoming gangsters. The state that once provided everything now provides nothing. These teenagers see Alexander's offer not as dangerous, but as opportunity. The apartment they're going to rob is apartment 357, his own home. Once inside, the boys realize their mistake. Too late, the trap has closed. All of them meet the same fate as Elena, and once again, Lyudmila finishes the job. Buckets, up and down 9 flights of stairs. She doesn't use the elevator. Too risky. I went out, Alexander later recalls with eerie calm, and when I came back, everything was clean. Mom took care of things. That summer, over 40 children vanish in Novokuznetsk. In May, Alexander returns to the construction site. This time he targets 4 teenage girls. He claims he has soap for sale, some kind of black market deal that interests them. They follow him home. History repeats. The mother helps. Even the family dog, a Newfoundland, participates, consuming what's offered to it. By summer's end, at least 7 people have died in apartment 357. Lyudmila knows. Alexander's sister knows too. She sometimes visits the apartment. In their twisted, closed-off world, this has become normal. Meanwhile, the police are drowning in leads going nowhere. Remains wash up in the Aba River. Parents are called to identify body parts. It's impossible. The police develop theories. They surveil a taxi driver, investigate potential satanic cults, even monitor a man named Grigory Gurin, a former butcher with a criminal record. When neighbors report a terrible smell from Gurin's apartment, police storm in. They find rotting pork, Gurin had been in a car accident and forgot meat at home. Another dead end. The investigation is a study in frustration. Novokuznetsk police are overwhelmed. Missing children reports flood in daily. Most turn out to be runaways who return within days, but some don't, and the ones who don't leave behind frantic parents and few clues. The city's infrastructure is crumbling. Surveillance is minimal. Forensic technology is limited. Investigators work with tools and methods from the Soviet era, trying to solve crimes in a new Russia where everything has changed. Across Russia, in a city almost 3,000 kilometers away, another serial killer named Oleg Rilkov is caught. Police briefly wonder if he operated in Novokuznetsk too, but children keep disappearing. There are calls about Spesivtsev. A neighbor complains about constant music from apartment 357, about a pungent stench in the stairwell. She asks police to investigate. They ignore her. This neighbor, her name is never released, lives directly below apartment 357. She hears the music, smells the decay, watches Lyudmila carry buckets up and down the stairs at odd hours. She calls police multiple times. Each time she's dismissed. The officers tell her it's probably spoiled food, that the Spesivtsevs are known to be eccentric, that they'll look into it when they have time. They never do. From June to August, 4 more schoolgirls die. 2 adult women, 1 man. Alexander doesn't discriminate anymore. He targets groups, sisters, friends, because people in groups feel safe. They think nothing bad can happen. If they're together, they're wrong. By late summer, Alexander stops taking what little medication he had. His mental state deteriorates further. He stops leaving the apartment entirely. That's when Lyudmila becomes the hunter. An unremarkable old woman walks through Novokuznetsk. She's looking for targets for her son. Here's the twist that changes everything. Lyudmila Spesivtseva isn't just helping her son dispose of bodies. She's not just an accomplice cleaning up his messes. She's actively hunting, selecting victims, bringing them home like gifts. This isn't just enabling. This is partnership. She develops a method. She targets children in groups they trust more easily. She poses as a helpless grandmother who would suspect danger. She offers small rewards, plastic cups, money, food, things that desperate families can't refuse. And she operates in daylight, in public spaces, surrounded by witnesses who see nothing suspicious. In late August, she spots 3 teenage girls in a store. Nastya Berneva, 13, Zhenya Barashkina, 13, Olya Galtseva, 15. They're buying water, getting ready for a disco. Lyudmila approaches with a grandmother's smile. She needs help carrying groceries home. In return, she'll give them plastic cups. The girls agree. Of course they do. She's just a harmless old woman. They reach apartment 357. Alexander is waiting. The attack begins immediately. Nastya tries to fight back when Alexander is distracted by Zhenya's crying. Nastya grabs a bottle and smashes it against his head. Alexander turns. There's a knife in his hand. I stabbed her several times. He later recounts with chilling casualness, but she didn't die. Nastya's resistance surprises him. Most victims freeze, But this 13-year-old girl fights for her life with everything she has. She claws at his face, kicks at his infected groin, causing him to scream in pain. For a moment, it seems possible she might escape. Then Lyudmila blocks the door, and Alexander, enraged by the pain, becomes even more vicious. Eventually, she does. Now only Olya and Zhenya remain. Alexander forces them to dismember their friend's body. Then he chains them both to a radiator. This psychological torture is deliberate. By forcing the survivors to participate in destroying their friend, Alexander breaks something fundamental inside them. They become complicit in their own trauma. It's a technique that ensures silence, submission, despair. Lyudmila brings them soup, meat soup. In the corner, the dog gnaws on a bone. He ate the spine, Alexander recalls fondly, and he generally eats the ribs really quickly. At some point, Alexander's sister visits. Both girls are still alive, but when Alexander learns that Zhenya is planning escape, he can't allow it. He opens the window, doesn't touch her body for 3 days, waiting for her soul to depart. Only Olya remains. Meanwhile, police have finally caught a break. Based on witness descriptions from the store, they've created a sketch of the old woman. One investigator recognizes her. Lyudmila Spesivtseva. He remembers she has a son who's in a psychiatric hospital. They check the records. Yes, Alexander Spesivtsev, currently listed as a patient. That's fine then, they think, and move on. The bureaucratic error still hasn't been discovered. This moment represents the final failure. If anyone had called the psychiatric hospital to confirm Alexander's location, everything would have ended. The paperwork error would have been discovered. Police would have rushed to apartment 357. Olya might have survived, but the investigator assumes the records are correct. Why wouldn't they be? And so he moves on to other leads. Alexander Spesivtsev is caught by pure chance. The housing department calls police. An employee has been trying to access apartment 357 for weeks to check radiators before winter. Each time a male voice answers, "I'm crazy. I'm locked inside. I can't open the door." Wait, doesn't Lyudmila Spesivtseva live there? Why is a man answering? Then it clicks. Police try to stop the housing department from sending a locksmith. Too late. By the time they arrive, the door is already open. What awaits them is a scene from hell. The apartment reeks of death. There's something in the bathroom Lyudmila hasn't disposed of yet. A Polaroid camera sits on a table, surrounded by photographs no human should ever take. And on the bed, chained to a radiator, is Olya Gultseva. She's alive, barely. While police were breaking down the door, Alexander escaped through the roof. They rush Olya to the hospital. Doctors try desperately to save her, while investigators question her as gently as possible. There's video of this interrogation. It's unwatchable. Olya is skeletal, dehydrated, in shock. She can barely speak, but she tries. She tells them about Nastya and Zhenya, about the soup, about the dog, about the old woman who brought them there. Investigators have to pause the questioning multiple times because Olya starts screaming. The trauma is too fresh, the horror too recent. Olya dies the next day from sepsis. Despite everything doctors try, they can't save her. No one survives meeting Alexander Spesivtsev. A few days later, the killer returns home. He can't survive on the run. Police arrest him outside apartment 357. I had nothing left to do, he tells them. I was denied treatment, and I have a weakened immune system. In the summer, I wrap myself in a jacket and sweater. Look, my hands are covered in sores. Both mother and son are taken into custody. Police organize a confrontation between them. It's surreal. They accuse each other. Lyudmila screams, I am responsible for 4 buckets. I've already earned myself 4 buckets. Shame on you. Why are you so angry with me? She never mentions victims by name, only buckets. At one point she shrieks, and you said that I ate cutlets. Shameless. The cutlets, investigators realize with horror, were not pork. The confrontation reveals the dynamics of their relationship. They argue like conspirators caught in a failed scheme, each trying to minimize their own role. Alexander accuses his mother of enjoying the killing. Lyudmila accuses her son of ingratitude. After everything she did for him, he dares to blame her. Neither shows remorse, neither mentions the victims as human beings. It's all about their own grievances, their own suffering, their own betrayal of each other. Alexander Spesivtsev confesses to 19 murders. Some victims are never identified. Some believe the real number is much higher, possibly 80, based on clothing and jewelry found in the apartment, but that can't be confirmed. The Spesivtsevs also stole and hoarded junk. Initially declared sane and facing full prosecution, Alexander is re-evaluated at Moscow's Serbsky Center, where Russia's most dangerous criminals are assessed. He's confirmed mentally ill. To this day, he remains in a specialized psychiatric hospital near Kamyshin. He'll likely die there. He's cared for. They even cut his nails so he can't harm himself. He doesn't complain. He reads, writes poetry, makes handicrafts, draws pictures. Some of those drawings he sends to his mother. Lyudmila received 13 years for complicity. Released in 2009, she now lives with her daughter. She's 83 years old. She receives her son's pension. She hopes even now that her beloved Sasha will be released someday. He won't be. The apartment on Pioneer Street stands empty, sealed. Sometimes people break in, film videos. The building itself is a monument to horror. In 2013, Lyudmila and her daughter tried to break into their old apartment at night. Residents spotted them and chased them out in disgrace. 19 confirmed victims, perhaps dozens more. But here's what keeps investigators awake at night. How many times did neighbors hear screams and do nothing? How many times did police receive calls and ignore them? How many lives could have been saved if someone, anyone, had simply paid attention? The city of Novokuznetsk has never fully recovered from the Spesivtsev case. Parents who lost children have formed support groups. Survivors, those who knew the victims, carry guilt for being alive. The neighborhood around Pioneer Street has become a place people avoid. Property values plummeted. Buildings stand vacant. The city tried to demolish apartment 357, but legal complications prevented it. So it remains sealed and rotting, a monument to collective failure. And here's the question that will never be answered. In that twisted relationship between mother and son, who was really in control? Was Lyudmila enabling a monster, or was she something worse? The architect of his madness, feeding his obsessions from childhood, hunting victims for him, creating the killer he became. We'll never know. What we do know is this: sometimes the most dangerous place isn't a dark alley or an abandoned warehouse. Sometimes it's apartment 357. Sometimes it's home. If this story left you speechless, there's another case that's even more twisted. One where the monster wasn't created by a mother's love, but by a system that failed at every level. Check the video on your screen now. I believe it was made for you.